Hi, my name is Kelly Walsh. I'm an associate attorney at Scaringi Law, and I'm here to remind you of the importance of filing your income taxes on time. Now, typically people who get a refund every year or regularly expect a refund don't need that reminder. It's people who owe or who are expecting to owe who really have an issue with this and kind of need that extra push. There's a tendency when you're expecting to owe money to maybe push that off into the background, try to avoid it as long as possible, and really when it comes to income taxes, that's not the best idea. It's best to face the problem head on. Now, the problem is when you push that to the background, it tends to grow, not only in terms of your anxiety about the tax debt that you're building up, but also in terms of the number that you actually owe to the IRS. When you fail to file your tax return, the IRS assesses a failure to file penalty. That amount can be 5% of your tax due, or if that amount is low enough, then there is a minimum amount that the IRS is going to assess you regardless of how little you otherwise would have owed, of $210 in the current year. And that is adjusted annually for inflation, so in future years that may go up. Another thing to keep in mind is the longer that you put it off, the more likely it is that you are going to lose the tax forms that you're getting in the mail right now, or that you will forget about some income that you had, and that can result in even bigger problems. If you, for instance, forget that you had a part-time job or a distribution from your retirement account or some other form of income, and you fail to report that on your taxes when you do finally get around to filing, that can result in a substantial understatement penalty. Unlike the failure to file penalty that's only about 5%, the substantial underpayment penalty is 20% of the understatement amount, and that can be a big number, depending on your circumstances. Also keep in mind that the IRS is going to be assessing you interest, not only on the tax debt that's owed, but on all of those penalties as well. So that just keeps going up and up. If you don't have the money to pay your taxes when it's time to file, you can go ahead and file your return anyway. That is something that some people fail to understand, that you don't necessarily have to remit the payment along with your taxes. That is when the payment is due. But if you can't afford to pay it then, you can submit the return and submit the payment later. There will be a little bit of interest assessed, but it's better to get that filed and get the process started. Or you can submit a request for an installment agreement along with your return so that you can get set up on a payment plan that you can afford and work on paying down that tax debt in a way that the IRS accepts and will allow you to do. Another thing to keep in mind, if you are someone who truly cannot afford to pay this tax debt and will never be able to afford to pay this tax debt, there is the option of bankruptcy. Typically, tax debt is not dischargeable in bankruptcy, but there are limited circumstances in which it can be. One of the factors that is looked at to determine if it's dischargeable in bankruptcy is whether you filed your return on time. And by on time for that purpose, we're not talking about by the time that you have an extension, if you get the extension to October, but by the actual April 15th due date. So get it filed by that date, and that perhaps opens the door for the possibility of discharging that tax debt in the future in bankruptcy if you really cannot afford to pay it. So if you have some tax debt that you need help resolving, and you want to have someone who can help you work through that process, or if you have past due tax returns that you've been putting off and you need someone to help you file, or if you are just someone who wants to get a head start on filing this year's tax returns on time by the deadline, give me a call. I'll be glad to help you work through everything and get everything in on time.